This is the English translation of Sefer Or La'amim, A Light Unto the Nations. The preface and introduction. Preface. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If the Torah is a book of instruction for the Jewish people, the commentators ask, then why did it not begin with a commandment for the Jewish people to fulfill? Their answer demonstrates the universality of the Torah, in that the question itself is misleading. The Torah is not intended solely for the Jewish people, but for all mankind. The Torah, therefore, in its opening sentence, intends to address not one section of humanity, but all thinking creatures. The Creator is saying to mankind, know that I have brought all existence into being, and that I am to be worshipped. The opening sentence calls to all mankind to recognize its Creator. The Torah is neither a book of history, nor of science, nor even of philosophy, though it contains some elements of each. It is a guide to life, a vital prescription for conduct in any situation, which intends to give meaning to a person's injuries through this world, to a person's journey through this world. The word Torah means teaching. The English word Bible means book, and even though it may be the book par excellence, it would still denote merely a book without further connotations. The word Torah indicates its function, the teaching of duties to mankind, and has therefore been left untranslated throughout this work to indicate this aspect of its purpose. Since all mankind is included in the scope of the Torah, how do we derive the respective roles of the Jew and the non-Jew? What is the purpose of this distinction? Before we see the answers to these questions, we shall begin with a brief introduction. Mankind was presented with the moral obligations from the moment of its creation. Man was bidden by God to keep 7 laws which form the basis for well-functioning societies. These 7 laws were given to Noah as the progenitor of all mankind, this being their permanent share of the truth, containing both spiritual and material benefits appropriate to them. These laws, if kept in the proper manner, bring to those who keep them the rewards associated with the true fulfillment of divine will. They apply equally to all nations without any prejudice or distinction, and thus they set out a new and harmonious basis for the running of society. Relationships between man and God, between man, and between man and his fellow creatures are all included in their scope, strengthening moral qualities and imbuing the existence with purpose and beauty. The complex world of today is an anxious search for consensus, for guiding principles which can gain the goodwill of everyone. Official recognition has already been conferred on the 7 laws as uniquely fitted for this task. The 7 main categories are as follows: the prohibition of idol worship, the prohibition of blasphemy, the prohibition of theft, the prohibition of murder, prohibition of sexual misconduct, the prohibition of eating meat cut from a living animal, the prohibition of failing to set up law courts. The Jewish people, as custodians of the Torah, and in particular their leaders as successors to Moses, have been entrusted with the task of bringing knowledge of these commandments to humanity. The introduction. For then I will turn to the nations in a clear language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one voice. Zephaniah 3:9. And all flesh will call upon your name, all who now dwell in confusion will recognize and know you. For to you every knee will bend, and every tongue will swear, and all will take upon themselves the yoke of your kingdom. That's part of the prayers. In recent years, a wide cross-section of the world's population has experienced a religious revival. This has occurred after strenuous attempts to distance themselves from belief in God during an era when technology appeared to reign supreme. In the 19th century, following the Industrial Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, science broke down the barriers in the understandings of the workings of nature. Thus, in the rush of novelties, there came to mind the feeling that all the questions of life had been answered. A new religion of science arose that displaced belief in God, In our own century, the rise of communism sent in motion a chain of events which have all but removed faith from the countries where it was once strong. And the commercialization of the West has introduced a materialistic scale of values to areas of life where they were never known before. Now, however, the realization is spreading that scientific and political systems also cannot provide the answers to fundamental questions, and that this shortcoming creates unease and dissatisfaction. Thus, humanity is coming once again towards the recognition of the Creator. The general public themselves are searching for a path which will have genuine meaning for their lives, and through which they can realize their spiritual dimension in addition to their more obvious physical one. There are some who have attached themselves to formal religions, and also many who are still searching, but all share the common goal of spiritual fulfillment. It is clear that if a way could be shown to them by which their need for basic beliefs and duties could be satisfied, they would realize it is worth immediately. The commandments incumbent upon all mankind have this capability, if they were to be explained, then people would take upon themselves forthwith to observe them. This instruction to the Jews to take on responsibility for spreading the truth of the 7 Noahide laws is found in Midrash Vayikra Rabbah, on the verse, "And if a person sins and hears the voice of adjuration, and is a witness whether he saw or knows of it," Leviticus 5:1. The Midrash expounds as follows. Witness, this is the Jewish nation, as it is said, you are witnesses, Isaiah 43:12. Saw, as it is said, you were shown to know, Deuteronomy 4:35. Know, as it is said, and know this day, same, 39. Know that if you do not tell, he will bear on his sin, meaning that the words of the Midrash and that the Jews mean the words in the words of the Midrash that the Jews are held accountable if they do not inform the world of the divinity of the Lord. And Maimonides, in his Book of Commandments, quotes the Sifri to Deuteronomy 3:23. We have already explained that this commandment, love of God, involves calling upon all mankind to worship Him and believe in Him. This is positive commandment number 3. If all this is so clearly stated, then we may well ask why it is that so many people are engaged in these duties, or are even aware of them. In fact, there have always been small numbers of people who involve themselves in these concepts. One in particular, who lived in the 19th century, took upon himself to do so and made it his life's work. He was Rabbi Yahu ben Amozeg, born in Italy, the author of Israel and Humanity, in which work he explains the problem. Since Judaism, in the exilic times, expected the realization of her purpose only in the distant future, it rested upon her to warn those who kept her laws of the dangers that might await them on the long and hard journey, in order to strengthen resolve and fulfill their task when the proper time arose. To this end, the idea was formed that it was best for Jerusalem to distance herself from all that was likely to turn, for Judaism to distance herself from all that was likely to turn her people away from their desired goal. In our own time, there exists a much greater degree of religious tolerance than before. Each man is allowed to cherish and develop his own ideas. Now, therefore, it is upon us to address ourselves to this task in a straightforward manner, under the guidance of our great spiritual leaders, whose perception is such as to avert any danger of untoward influences. The results that might flow from this effort can be anticipated from the many statements of non-Jewish philosophers on the influence of Judaic thought in general, as for instance the French philosopher, I may be reading this wrong, Raynal. One cannot deny that the Jews have many hidden talents, more than all the nations of the world. They are born dispersed across many lands, yet they are the men excelling in literature, philosophy, and research. Humanity received from the ancient world 3 teachers: the Jews, teachers of faith, character, and ethics; the Greeks, teachers of wisdom; the Romans, teachers of law. From the Greeks and Romans, we have learned all there is to learn, and having completed their tasks, they vanished. But the Jews have remained, and this is a sign that we need their law and that we have much to learn from them. One of the greatest religious mysteries that has confronted the non-Jewish world in the influence of Judaism on the other descendants of Abraham is his son Ishmael and his grandson Esau. Both of these carried on campaigns directed in a certain way against idol worship, though their religions are Islam and Christianity. However, they, to a degree, distorted Judaism's teachings in a fashion which negates the Torah, though deriving from it a source of truth. In particular, they did not take upon themselves the commandments of the Torah, even in the Noahide sense in which they existed at that time. Rabbi Ben Amazog wrote in his work, "The Jew, who is he? What is he?" in response to a non-Jew who inquired the correct way, showing the necessary preconditions. In order to recognize the truth, in order to find favor in the eyes of God, you have no need to convert to Judaism as you think. To take upon yourself the many commandments of our Torah in our hands has been placed a religion which is for all mankind, a special religion that non-Jews should accept for themselves, through which they may gain the world to come and find favor in God's eyes, as did our own forefathers before the giving of the Torah. How is one able to understand that the true religion which God gave to all mankind began from just the time of Moses and is stamped with the mark of specific people? A contradiction? No. You should know that God's plan is a wider nature, and that religion of humanity is none other than that of the sons of Noah. Excuse me, that the religion of humanity is none other than that of the sons of Noah. The explanation of this phrase is not that Noah himself was the prominent proponent of these laws, but that they were called by his name because during his lifetime the covenant between God and man concerning these commandments was made. This is the religion that Israel has guarded in order to pass it on to the nations of the world. This is the path that you should follow, and my effort should be to spread its knowledge as is demanded of me, without coming to desire the Torah of Moses, which is the private duty of the Jewish people, or the religions of Christianity and Islam, for they in the main are based in the denial of the Torah of Moses, even though one may find good ideas and beliefs in them. Thus, even though Christianity and Islam have spread the belief in God, albeit in a distorted manner, this stems, according to Rabbi Ben Amazog, from the Jewish obligation to spread such belief. Without the basis in Judaism, these religions would not have been as successful as they have been in reducing the worship of false gods. If this is so, why were those who were influenced by Judaism themselves the greatest persecutors and inflictors of suffering on the Jews? Great harm was caused by idolaters, but not as great as that of the Christians and the Muslims. The thought arises that perhaps suffering wrought by them bears some relation precisely to this duty of the Jews to spread belief in God among the nations. That if we had carried it forward to the extent of making the resident Gentiles observers of the 7 laws, out of Romans and Arabs, then these other religions would never have arisen to cause so much confusion and pain. It is well known that in the early stages of Christianity there was a strong Jewish influence on Roman society, to the extent that many eyes were open to the emptiness of idol worship. The same is true of the Arabs in the days of Muhammad. Many searched after the true faith, but were prevented by the early Christians and Muslims, who distorted the truth to form their own structures. Another example is similar to this occurred in the spiritual vacuum which followed the collapse of false gods of Japan at the close of World War II. Many searching people in that era were caught by Christian missionaries. It is not too much to suppose that if appropriate action had been taken, they would have become resident Gentiles. Rabbi Ben Amazog tells the story of a group of people in southern France who built a settlement near Montpellier on the basis of the 7 Noahide laws. This is in Israel and Humanity, page 8. They call themselves the children of Noah. This furnishes proof that an effort to spread these truths in the world can meet with success, and at a time when much of humanity has lost its path, we owe it to them to make the attempt. In this work, we have tried to elucidate the basic ideas which a non-Jew needs to know and to clarify the practical laws for him in order to ease his task in finding the true and fulfilling way. It will also strengthen those who are already involved in keeping the commandments addressed to non-Jews. We also wish to try and to explain to our own Jewish people that the true Torah attitudes to the nations of the world and their role in the divine scheme. Our great leaders today have perceived that these times are close to the coming of the Messiah. Therefore, there is now a greater duty than in the past to be involved in the spreading of the light of Torah, so that in the end of days, all peoples will return and recognize the truth. The commentator, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, Rashi, explains the verse. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Deuteronomy 6:4. That today, the Lord is our God, and not the God of the idol worshiper. But in the future he will be the one God, namely that all will recognize him as the one and the true God. As it said, on that day he will be one and his name one. Zechariah 14:9. Thank you.